You believe you're steering your life. Each day you rise, adhere to your schedule, meet your duties, and maybe even take pride in your self-control, your efficiency, your adherence to guidelines. But pause and reflect genuinely. Have you ever pondered why you do these things? Have you ever considered who set the standards for right or wrong, typical or unusual, acceptable or disgraceful? The reality is that you've been conditioned to comply since youth, since the first school bell, since the first reprimand for misbehavior, since the first time you heard something was unsuitable. Michel Foucault, in Discipline and Punish, uncovers something few dare to acknowledge. Contemporary authority no longer requires restraints, yells, or public executions. It doesn't assert itself with overt force. It seeps into daily existence, establishments, customs, and the most ordinary actions. What once was the cruelty of torment, the body being torn apart publicly as a form of penalty, is now a quiet, effective, and nearly imperceptible regulation. And the most troubling part, you term this ordinary existence. You think you learn because you wish to, labor because you must, act because it's the proper action. But is it truly? Or have you been molded to be useful, efficient, adjusted? The structure doesn't want you to ponder. It wants you to replicate. It doesn't want you to inquire. It wants you to comply. Education taught you to await the cue to proceed. Employment trained you not to deviate. The clinic manages your physique. The media shapes your aspirations. And amidst all this, you believe you're autonomous. Foucault terms this discipline, but not positively. You've learned. Discipline here is taming. It's the conditioning of bodies and minds to obey without defiance, to accept regulation without realizing they're being managed, and more. To start monitoring themselves. You no longer require a warden because you've learned to penalize yourself, to suppress yourself, to regulate yourself. You've become your own overseer. This is the essence of the panopticon, a model of authority where everyone feels scrutinized even when no one is observing. And this is how regulation becomes flawless, unseen, impersonal, automatic. The dread of being observed makes you conform. Even if the stare doesn't exist, you don't act because it's virtuous. You act because you were taught to fear. But here's the crucial point. This isn't your fault. You were born into this framework. You were molded by it. But now you can start to perceive. This discourse isn't to provide you with ready answers, but to incite a disruption. A disruption in how you view yourself, the world around you, and the frameworks governing your being. You don't have to continue obeying. But first, you must grasp how authority functions. And for that, we must explore the mind of Michel Foucault and the concealed mechanisms of modern regulation. Are you prepared for this? Then proceed. Because from now on, you'll no longer see the world the same way. For ages, authority punished with brutality. The body of the condemned was the platform for the spectacle of punishment, torture, mutilations, public beheadings. Everything was done so that agony could be witnessed, felt, dreaded. The aim was evident: to intimidate, evoke terror, instill fear as a means of control. Violence wasn't a flaw in the system. It was the system itself operating. The crowd assembled to watch. Authority displayed itself, triumphant, eliciting cries from the condemned and silent applause from the terrified spectators. But something shifted over time. This rationale became unsustainable. Public violence started to generate more revulsion than respect. The figure of the executioner became confused with that of the criminal. The audience, once complicit, began to feel empathy for the punished. Authority realized it required a new approach, a more effective, subtler, more enduring method to keep individuals under control without inciting rebellion. And thus was born what Foucault termed the disciplinary society. Punishment ceased to act on the flesh and began to act on conduct. The emphasis was no longer on punishing after the error, but on preventing the error from occurring. The notion was no longer to repay the crime with suffering, but to mold the individual even before they considered disobeying. Authority ceased to be spectacular and became technical, almost scientific. Public torture was replaced by norms, routines, regulations, constant observation, and above all, by training. It is here that Foucault introduces the concept of docile bodies. The aim of the new institutions, schools, barracks, factories, hospitals, prisons, was not just to care for, educate, or heal. It was to format. It was to transform the human body into a functional component, to train its movements, its schedules, its productivity, its focus. The body became an object to be managed, corrected, optimized. The student must sit in line. The soldier must march in unison. The worker must repeat the motion mechanically. It's not just about obeying. It's about embodying obedience. Discipline permeates the details. In the way of dressing, speaking, walking, thinking. School teaches more than arithmetic. It teaches submission to time, to the instructor, to the imposed content. Work imposes objectives, schedules, constant assessment. The hospital records your body, calculates your vital signs, defines when you are normal or abnormal. Each institution participates in the same project to produce predictable, adjusted, useful individuals. And the most insidious part, all of this seems natural. You believe you are being educated, treated, formed. But in reality, you are being shaped. Every gesture, every choice, every step of yours is being monitored not by a tyrant with a whip, but by mechanisms so embedded in daily life that you no longer even notice them. You have already been punished by discipline and didn't even realize it. Because now punishment presents itself as care, as order, as progress. But control doesn't stop there. When discipline becomes part of daily life, a new type of surveillance emerges, more efficient, more insidious, a model where you begin to watch yourself, believing that this is freedom. And this is exactly what we will explore next. The emergence of the panopticon, the invisible eye that never blinks and that lives within you. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Imagine living under the constant gaze of someone who never sleeps, never blinks, never gets distracted. Now imagine that this gaze does not come from outside. It is within you. This is the true triumph of modern power. It no longer needs to physically restrain you because it has already colonized your mind. This is what Michel Foucault called panopticism, a model of total, impersonal, silent surveillance, and for that reason, extremely effective. The panopticon was originally conceived by Jeremy Bentham as an ideal prison architecture, a central tower from where a single guard could observe all. The cells, while the prisoners would never know if they were being watched at that moment. The secret lies there. It is not necessary for the guard to always be looking. It is enough for the prisoners to believe that he might be watching. The result, they begin to behave as if they are always under surveillance. They self-censor. They self-discipline. Foucault takes this model and expands it. Panopticism is not restricted to prisons. It is everywhere. The school is a panopticon. The hospital, the barracks, the factory, the office. All these spaces have been structured to maximize surveillance and control, even without the direct presence of a supervisor. Cameras, reports, performance evaluations, tests, medical records, report cards, goal systems, productivity apps. Everything serves the same purpose: to make behavior visible, quantifiable, comparable, to make the subject transparent, and with that, controllable. Have you ever felt that you need to perform all the time? That you need to show that you are busy, productive, functional, even when you are exhausted? Have you ever felt guilty for resting, for not being productive, for not keeping up with the expected pace? This guilt did not come by chance. It is the direct effect of the internalized panopticon. You watch yourself, you compare yourself, you judge yourself, and you do this so often that you don't even realize that the system no longer needs to punish you. You already do that on your own. The most frightening thing is that this gaze does not always come from a real person. Sometimes it is an algorithm, a system, a form, a number on a spreadsheet. And yet it has power. You know you are being measured, that you will be classified, that you need to fit in. Surveillance has become automated. And the more efficient it is, the more invisible it becomes. The panopticon does not need high walls. It only needs conditioned minds. And you, like all of us, grew up within this logic. Since childhood, you were trained to behave as if you were being observed. This, as if, has become your second skin. It is the reason you hesitate before saying what you think. It is the reason you dress a certain way, act a certain way, speak a certain way, not because someone forces you, but because you learned to force yourself. But if the panopticon operates in such a silent, diffuse, ingrained way, where exactly does it begin? And more importantly, how does it infiltrate the institutions of everyday life? The small routines, the rules you accept without thinking. This is what we will explore in the next part. How discipline has been normalized in daily life and how institutions shape every aspect of your existence. Because the system does not just watch, it educates. And what seems like education is often pure conditioning. You do not wake up free. You wake up programmed. Even before opening your eyes, you already know what you need to do. Meet schedules, goals, obligations. And the most impressive thing, you call this routine. You believe you are being responsible, productive, functional. But what you call responsibility, Foucault calls training. Your day does not start with freedom. It starts with obedience. This obedience does not arise from nowhere. It has been built, shaped, repeated. And the place where this happens is the institutional space, school, work, hospital, army, church, even family. Each of these institutions functions as a gear in the great disciplinary system. They all have a common function: to format bodies and minds to follow an accepted, predictable, controllable behavior model. They not only teach you to live in society, they train you to obey. Let's start with school. It is not just a place where you learn math, history, or grammar. It is above all a laboratory of obedience. The bell rings. You stand up, line up, silence. Speak only when authorized. Learn what you are told. You are evaluated, compared, ranked. From an early age, you learn that there is a hierarchy of power between teacher and student, between administration and student body, between those who get high grades and those who fail. Learning in the disciplinary logic is not an act of freedom. It is a process of normalization. Now, think about your workplace. Reports, goals, quarterly evaluations, rigid schedules, monitored emails, security cameras, badges that record every movement. You are just another number, a data point in the system, a present body that needs to produce. Time is no longer yours. Attention is no longer yours. Your behavior is continuously measured, compared, judged. You are the very project of a docile body, efficient, adapted. And if you do not adapt, you are disposable. Hospitals and clinics are no exception. The body is classified, diagnosed, corrected. Exams, medical records, prescriptions. You are seen as an object to be adjusted, controlled, kept within a standard. If you are outside this standard, you are considered dysfunctional, abnormal, pathological. Medicine often stops healing and starts normalizing. Health becomes a new form of discipline. All these institutions have something in common. They create a sense of normality. They teach you not to question, to go with the flow, to internalize rules. And the scariest part is that you come to believe that this is the right thing, that this adaptation is maturity, that following the norms is a sign of success. Obedience disguises itself as merit. Conformity is sold as virtue. And thus, control becomes almost absolute because it does not come from outside. It comes from within. You believe you choose, but in fact, you are just repeating what you have been trained to do. Every gesture, every automatic response, every shaped thought, all of this is the product of a system that does not want you to think. It wants you to function. But where does this standard come from? Who decided what is right, acceptable, normal? And why are we taught to fear everything that deviates from the norm? This is what we will reveal in the next part, how the idea of normality was constructed as a tool of control, and how it traps you without you realizing it. Have you ever stopped to think about what exactly it means to be normal? Is being normal acting like the majority? Is it following the rules? Is it not causing discomfort? The truth is that normality is not a natural condition of being human. It is a social construct, a powerful fiction created to shape behaviors and exclude everything that escapes control. And as Foucault shows us, this fiction is one of the central gears of disciplinary power. From an early age, you learn what is considered appropriate, how to dress, how to speak, how to behave, even what to feel. Everything outside this framework is viewed with suspicion. Overly restless children are labeled. People who are too sad are medicated. Those who think differently are corrected, punished, or isolated. Normality functions like an invisible fence. It doesn't confine you with walls, but with fear. The fear of being seen as wrong. The fear of being excluded, ridiculed, silenced. And here lies the central point. What is called normal serves a political function. It serves to keep the system, in order to ensure that each individual occupies their place without questioning. Normality is a tool of domestication. It divides the world between those who fit in and those who need to be corrected, between those who are considered exemplary, citizens, and those who are treated as threats, deviations, problems. This logic is present in medicine, psychology, pedagogy, media, the job market, and the penal system. The student who does not learn in the right time is labeled as disabled. The worker who does not perform as expected is discarded as unproductive. The woman who refuses to be submissive is labeled hysterical. The young person who does not want to follow the script of adult life is seen as immature. The person who does not find pleasure in producing all the time is accused of being lazy. The different is always pathologized. Foucault shows that modern power does not impose itself only through coercion. It imposes itself through the production of truths. Truths that seem objective, scientific, unquestionable, but that are in fact ideological constructions. When a doctor says that your mind is sick because you do not adapt to the rhythm of society, he is not just making a diagnosis. He is applying a moral judgment disguised as science. He is teaching you that the problem lies within you, not in the system that demands the same performance, the same emotional stability, the same conformity from everyone. The fabrication of normality is the most efficient mechanism of domination because it transforms control into desire. You do not feel forced to obey. You want to obey. You strive to be accepted, to fit in, to be seen as someone adjusted, and if you fail, you feel guilt, shame, failure. The system does not need to confine you. You condemn yourself when you cannot be what is expected of you. But here is the breaking point. Normality is not a mirror of reality. It is a mask placed over it. And like any mask, it can and must be torn off. But for that, you need to start asking the right questions. It is not enough to reject the norm. You need to understand where it comes from. Who benefits from your obedience? Who gains when you remain silent? Adjust. Sabotage yourself. This is what we will uncover next. How to break this.